In April of 2011, my dad was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. When he was diagnosed in stage 3. He had started with back pain in January of 2011, and after 6 doctors missed it, one finally discovered what it was. At the time, his prognosis was 22 months, best case scenario. Of course, we all cried, we all got upset, and then we all dove into research and figured out what we needed to do to support my dad. And we got him into a whole bunch of specialists, and we found one at University of Maryland Medical Center who is one of the world-renowned specialists in that particular type of cancer. And he started, treatment literally the day after his first appointment there. He went through a stem cell transplant. He went through a whole bunch of different chemos. One sent him into kidney failure. He bounced back from that. He continued to treat. He went into 3 different clinical trials while he was at University of Maryland Medical Center, and that bought him a few more years. He got to actually a point where he was the 5th person ever to get a full remission from multiple myeloma, which was really incredible. And we never thought that that would actually happen. They told us it wasn't possible when he was diagnosed. But they also told us that it wouldn't last. And sure enough, it didn't. So 2.5 years after we got that miraculous news, and we're over the moon excited that we were gonna have Dad for a little longer, we found out it was back, and it was back with a vengeance. So he went back into treatment, and then we had a pandemic. Last September, over Labor Day weekend, my dad contracted COVID from somebody who was unvaccinated. And he spent 14 days in the hospital where we couldn't see him, we couldn't talk to him, he couldn't move. He should have been on a ventilator, but they didn't have any, they were out. They were all being used by other patients. And so he was not expected to make it. We kind of prepared ourselves for the worst. I called every single day. I found that the night shift, for those I don't know if anyone here works in healthcare or in a hospital, but I found that on night shift, they actually had time to answer questions and talk to me and let me know how he was doing. So I would check in at 1 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning for those 14 days. And again, my dad, because he is a stubborn person, managed to pull through. And he came home, and we're still not entirely sure how that happened, but he did, and we were over the moon excited. And then he had to delay getting back into chemo treatment because he was still recovering. He was on oxygen until Thanksgiving. He got to the point where he was starting to feel really, really rotten all of the time. And it was a different feeling from the first time that he had the multiple myeloma and even what he was experiencing right before the COVID. And we weren't sure how much was the COVID, remnants of COVID, and how much was his cancer kind of running rampant because he wasn't treating. But he did a whole bunch of tests. We went through the whole, went to a whole bunch of specialists again and found out that he actually also, not only did he have multiple myeloma, he also had contracted leukemia. So he had CMML on top of the multiple myeloma. And at that point, they told us that there were no viable treatment options left, which was heartbreaking. There's not a whole lot what to do with that. Somebody who's fought that hard for that long, and than to be told there's nothing more we can do for you. And my dad, had wanted to spend as much time with the family as he could. And he eventually told us that, he had made his peace with not treating. He just wanted whatever time with us he could get. And that his desire was to pass at home with his family around him. So, and he wanted to make it to Christmas. So on December 23rd, he went into the hospital with an infection. We spent several days up and down, a week actually, up and down, not sure if we were ever gonna actually get to bring him home, and we did on New Year's Eve. We spent New Year's Day as a family. We celebrated our Christmas then, and then Dad went into a deep decline. As of Wednesday of that week, all of my siblings moved back into the house with my mom, and we were taking care of him 24/7. And my dad, unfortunately, peacefully passed with the entire family around him on January 9th. But looking back at it, and I haven't had a whole lot of time to contemplate it because it's still fairly fresh, but those days where we were with Dad, those last few days, was agony in one hand, but it was also the greatest gift he could have given us, because there's no way that all of us would have been in that house together for that many hours and that many days and not strangled one another. And so we do have a lot of good memories of that time in amongst the tragedy that was coming, but it was definitely a time like no other, thank goodness.